Okay, hi everybody. Thanks so much for coming to our session. My name is Brittanny Silva, and this is Andrew Mullins, and we're both archivists at the New Orleans City Archives and Special Collections. It is a department of the Public Library in New Orleans. We are just a little bit about our department. So we're the official repository for the municipal records for the New Orleans government. So that means city council, mayors, city agencies. We also, again, our Department of the Public Library, we have an outward facing reference presence. We do a lot of remote research for people. Our collections include court records. We have a genealogy department, property history, our municipal archives, special collections of local interest. Our patron base ranges from academic researchers, professional genealogists, to just members of the community, members of the public, varying levels of experience with archives, with research, varying levels of literacy and digital literacy. So all of these things, our collection materials, our patrons, and our access, or the access that we're providing, are all things that we have been keeping in mind in the last 2 years as we were undertaking this journey, which we are about to talk about.
Okay, so in the spring of 2021, we decided that we needed to completely revamp our approach to our online presence, our discovery tools, as well as our digital content. We had multiple outdated systems and processes that were coming due at a time where we don't have much IT support, and that limited support was going to be with sort of restricted even more. So we decided to kind of approach the whole thing as a holistic exercise to revamp our web presence. And this included our archives website, our online finding aids, and most of our accessibility to digital content, as well as our digital preservation, internal processes, and workflows. So in 2021, we were using an outdated hand-coded website that had existed since 1995 and had been reiterated upon multiple times since then, especially after 2005, after Hurricane Katrina. We had no archival management system. All of our finding aids were in HTML and were organized on the website within an archives section. However, we did use Content DM to manage a lot of our digital photographs and digital images. That said, while digitization was very strong and the processes around that were pretty well articulated, we have no standard process for digital storage and for where things would go after we were completed with them, except for Content DM. We had no long-term digital preservation plan and a variety of storage devices and servers.
Is that me?
Yep.
Okay. So with that in mind, after we assessed our situation, we came up with a couple of goals for where we wanted to be. So we knew we wanted to do a complete overhaul of our website. So again, as a department of the library, the public library got a new website in 2000.
17.
Well, they went live with the WordPress website maybe
Oh, yeah.
maybe 3 years ago. We weren't quite ready to redo our website yet, but we knew that we were going to be working within the parameters of what the library system was doing as well. So we knew we wanted to do a complete overhaul of the website. We knew we wanted to create a department blog for as a way to kind of filter out a lot of the information that was already on our website, and to showcase some of our collections. We knew we needed new storage solutions for long-term preservation for digital materials, and that includes what we already had and what we're anticipating intaking from the city, since now the majority of the records are born digital rather than things that we are digitizing. We knew that we were going to be migrating our HTML finding aids into a new content management system. We decided on Archive Space, and that we wanted to create processes and workflows to standardize these procedures within the department so that we, or future us, wouldn't be doing this again in 5 years. We decided to do everything everywhere all at once. New website, content management system, and new digital cloud storage kind of we just kind of upended all of our processes at the same time, and just we're starting from a place where we knew all of these different things were going to be informing
Yeah.
and building upon each other. And so rather than changing things incrementally, introducing a new website, then introducing a content management system, then, moving to a different digital storage solution, we felt like, let's just dive in and kind of create it from the ground up, from how we wanted our department to kind of attack these different softwares and these different processes.
So a lot of this was born out of necessity. At the same time, we had gotten the word from IT that our server that they had been maintaining that had our website, which included our finding aids and a lot of our digital collections, was, in their words, dying, and also in their words, being held together by safety pins and rubber bands. So we had an immediate need to really get this done quickly. And efficiently. We held a series of meetings throughout the entire process where we made sure that we were all on the same page, and that any sort of changes or sort of new processes or things that we had identified were being articulated across the website archive space and any sort of digitized and content DM, as well as with DuraCloud when that aspect came into it.
And then also keeping in mind that we we were doing all of this in-house in our department. So our IT department wasn't working on our website with us or working on digital solutions with us. We were a team of 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 of us that worked on all of these. So creating this new website, creating, migrating everything. So keeping that in mind, we wanted to make sure that we had as much control over the old information, the new information, and the new processes as we could.
And thankfully, IT and marketing wanted us to have that control
Yes.
and let us alone to do it.
Yes, exactly. So this is archives.nolalibrary.org, which is where we came from. I mean, our original website was called nutrias.org, which, if you're not familiar with what a nutria is, they are a local rodent of unusual size that with orange teeth that our predecessors lovingly named our original website after. So the website was launched in 1995. It was one of the first public library websites in the state. So it was very 1995 cutting edge. This is a clip from the local newspaper about about a guide that is an archives guide that was available. That website is a direct route on the library's worldwide website. So it was created, it was administered by our department up until 2015. You can look back at our old website all the way back till 1998. The website continued to grow. Our department continued to maintain it. By the time that the public library system kind of separated their website from the archives website, our content was 90% of what the website was. So all of our finding aids, our digital content. So we were administering and maintaining a lot of content on the website. So what was wrong with it? This is just a little screenshot from what our website looked like in January, because we went live at the end of January of 2024. So it was outdated. The design was over 20 years old. There's a lot of information, but it was very cluttered in the way that it was presented. The organization was very confusing. Because it had been maintained by different people over time in the department. It was added to, things were taken away or not taken away. There was a lot of duplicate and conflicting information. It was a hand-coded HTML nightmare. A lot of it was just unstructured, just straight HTML coding directly onto the website. There was walls and walls of text of finding aids that was difficult to read, and it was really jarring for patrons to kind of dive into, or especially for someone that's not, really used to doing a lot of archival research. So bear with me. I'm gonna link out and go to our old website through the Wayback Machine and kind of take y'all through what it looked like. So if for some reason the screen doesn't share anymore, somebody please unmute and tell me that they can't say anything. But so again, this is what our website looked like. All of our finding aids, digital collections that were, again, kind of buried. We had research guides and everything just kind of all in one place. Our municipal records, this is, the main portion of our collection, as the repository for the city's records. The finding aids were just endless, hard to even find anything, lots and lots and lots of information. There was also a division in the way that our collections were presented. In the late 80s, early 90s, our department received a grant from the NEH to microfilm our pre-1861 records. So all of our materials pre-1861 were kind of treated as one collection. And then post 1861, those same agencies were described in different collections. So for instance, these are all the different iterations of city council that we've had in New Orleans pre 1861. All these different finding aids that are talking about the different records. And again, pages and pages and pages of text to scroll through. So if you're interested in city council records pre 1861, you would look here. But then if you were interested in city council records from 1982, you would have to come down here and look at council members and then the city council. So there's just a lot of things that were in different places, and it wasn't intuitive to find things. Additionally, I wanted to just bring up two of the main resource guides that we have is genealogy and property research. A lot of people do that here. So we created guides that funnel our patrons to these specific collections. And again, while it has a ton of really great information, it can be just a little overwhelming in the way that the information is presented, in the format it's presented, and frankly, it's so much text, no one is going to read this. And so we're just answering questions that all of the information is here, but people are just not going to look at it because they're not going to read it. So going back, sorry, thank you. Where are we? Current slide. Okay, so we did a complete review of our website, and that included, and I'm not exaggerating, combing through every single page on our website, deciding what should stay, what should go. We knew we were going to do a complete intellectual reorganization of a lot of the information that was presented there, especially in those with that division that was caused by the NEH grant, so that 1861 and then prior. We knew that we wanted to reunite these collections and these city agencies rather than have two different places to look for records. We knew we wanted to highlight our digital exhibits and have our digital content be more prominent in the new website. We knew we wanted to reformat our research guides and have them function more as research guides and not have them be research guides with finding aids inside of them. So we knew we wanted to do a lot of editing and a lot of reformatting. We knew we wanted to create a blog, and we wanted to use the blog as a way to capture some of that information from the research guides that kind of tended to be a little overwhelming, but maybe have that in a blog post where, we would talk about, okay, this one specific aspect of naturalization records, it doesn't need to be in this guide. We can just have a blog post about it that we can share with people. We knew that we were going to separate out the finding aids from the rest of the web content and use archive space for that, and then use the website to filter users to archive space. So cut down on the information that is on the website and use it as a way to move our patrons to access the actual finding aids on archive space. So now our new website, which we launched earlier this year, we got a new URL, which is nolacity.archives.org. We're working in WordPress, and we're working within, the library structure. So they have the library system has a basic framework for what their website looked like. And we knew we wanted to mirror that because we're still part of the library system, but we wanted to kind of have our own standout, stylistic choices. So we have different colors, we have different icons, but it kind of mimics the structure of the library's website. We got our new URL, and we wanted to make sure that our choices were contributing to our overall goals of clear, concise, and coherent presentation of information. So one more time, I'm going to link out. This is what our new website looks like. So our new homepage, we have these quick link icons to our city archives, special collections, genealogy, property, digital, newspapers. In our carousel here, we have different things that are highlighted. We have our blog, we have different photo collections, and we update these all the time. We've got, this is an exhibit that we have highlighted. Our blog posts here, we always feature a resource. And then from that, we have our little drop downs on our, informationals, our different research with our property guide, genealogy guide, our digital content. And then here we have our blog. And just quickly, I want to bring up, so here's the new, can I move this? No? Okay. Well, I don't know how to get back to that. Whatever. Here's how our city archives is now presented. Everything about the office of the mayor is here. Everything about the city council is here, regardless of, if it's a record from 1769 or if it's a record from 1962. And we've used, the different widgets to kind of mirror what we're trying to do with, being clear, being concise, but also at the same time linking out to archive space. And we're gonna talk about archive space later, so I'm not gonna click out on these. But each of these links out to the finding aids that have to do with the different collections. We went ahead and when we could, we've highlighted some of our digital collections within the web pages for different city agencies. So this is for the library. These will link out to our content DM, to our content management system, so you can see different photographs and annual reports that we have scanned. This will link out to archive space with our different finding aids, but it'll also have all of the information corralled right here that has to do with the library that we have in our collection. So our patrons only have to go to one page. And then I do want to, let's see, I'm trying to click on this. Okay, so this is where we were with our genealogy guide. So again, just to compare, this is where we were when we were talking about burial records in our genealogy guide that we wanted patrons to look through and figure out from this what they needed to look at. And then after reformatting, this is where we landed, which it has a similar structure as the rest of the website. So if we were looking for burial records, we'd have the same kind of like clear, concise, okay, we're filtered into these different areas. If I'm looking for non-city owned cemeteries, here they are, all the different things we have, links to, here's a program that we did about Catholic cemeteries. Each of these cemetery records, just a quick description. This will link out to Content DM that will have more information about the finding aids, but it'll also have the name of the collection, the date span, and it has the call number here. So if you don't need any more information about it, our patrons can go here and say, yes, this is what I need to look at. Here's the call number. I can just go into the archives and request this microfilm. So again, we were really trying to edit down a lot of the information, but at the same time, preserve it and just move it into the right place, whether that be our website, Content DM, or a blog post. So with that, I am going to let Andrew talk finally. Okay. Oops, that was wrong. Sorry. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so we knew while we wanted to update the website that we wanted to actually transition to an actual content management system, and we settled on Archive Space. We partnered with Atlas Systems to be our vendor and to help us with support and help us manage it over time. And in meeting with them and showing them our old website, we kind of figured out that there was not going to be any sort of automated migration. We knew that going in, but that it was going to be entirely piecemeal based upon our HTML finding aids and the quality of the HTML therein. We took this as a great opportunity to do a lot of the reorganization that Brittanny talked about. Just because of New Orleans' unique history and the changing government bodies over time, this presented some good opportunities to unite a lot of those different council bodies like Brittanny showed. It also allowed us to kind of take the mayor's office and group all of those things together from the municipality period where the mayor was the only citywide official and each other municipality had their own governments to the modern charter where the mayor and the CAO are the executive body proper and the city council as the legislative body, and they kind of go back and forth.
And we only have one city council.
And we only have one city council and not multiple ones. That's right. To facilitate this, we sort of accessed our HTML finding aids and found that there were varying degrees of structure. Um, about 10 years ago, the archive started hiring more archivists, and they sort of implemented more DAX compliance with the finding aids and some more structure. So if we had finding aids that had more structure, like the darker finding aid here, those were easily imported into archive space using the XLSX import sheet provided by archive space, whereas some of the other HTML that we had going back much further had little structure if we were lucky, so that we could import it into an Excel spreadsheet and use some good old-fashioned copy and paste with a little text to column sprinkled in to manipulate it to get it to where we could put it into the to the import data spreadsheet. But oftentimes there were things that had no structure whatsoever and would not play nice. And so we had to go through and do those pretty tediously one by one.
Which is all that grant stuff, all of the pre-1861, nothing had clean HTML at all. All of that we went through and had to basically hand enter
Yeah.
all of that and reorganize it. And we weren't able to crosswalk any of that into archive space.
And that had the added challenge of that stuff was not going to be just sort of put into its own collection one for one. That was being chopped up and put into a
Exactly.
bunch of the collections, which is the way that it should have been. But
Right.
because of its just loose structure on the back end, it made that even more difficult. So with this process, depending on the HTML, if it was well structured, we could get a large collection done in an afternoon, but a small collection with a folder level inventory would take multiple days, if depending on how unstructured it was and how many folders it had in it. So when we got into archive space, and through our discussions about the website and reorganizing it, we decided to use some of the enhancements, authority files, subjects, agents, the classifications in archive space to sort of provide an underlying infrastructure of descriptions so that we could better link things together. Um, we made decisions early on that we were going to try to focus on grouping things by city government. Then that became challenged when we would come across early, let's say, an example would be like early waterworks departments, where you would have at one point in New Orleans history, there were two waterworks departments and they were dueling with each other and warring over who actually performed the functions of the waterworks department. So we would come to some conclusions, maybe at times that we would need to organize certain departments more based on function rather than individual departments. But further down the line, we started looking at what other city archives across the country were doing, and we really liked how the city of Boston and their archives department was using classifications to provide more function-based linking across collections, which was extremely helpful for building out a lot of these departments that changed over time, that would either be their own department or subsumed within the mayor's department, because the mayor would just sort of create all these boards and classifications at their whim, and not often put them in their proper department. We could better link those by functions and enhance the searchability. We also could do that using the subject files, and went about developing internal processes and standards to apply agent and subject files to collections. This could be applied some more uniformly than others because the mayor's collections, again, mayors were often unique in their problems, would have just vast subject files where they would just dump things. And so having a list of subject files for a 50-box collection, a list 20 subject files long, doesn't necessarily help. And when it's organized based on year, applying subject files to each year would create a lot of clutter. So we went with making some decisions that now we're starting to see how they affect the searchability in archive space. We've been getting on the back end and looking at the Solr search function, but it kind of came to the conclusion that it was the way that we were applying authority files that were causing some of our issues. And then finally, we were able to better sort of link Content DM and our digitized collections with their collections proper. Mayors had their own PR teams that would generate their own photographs. So those photographs collections are now reunited with the other records in the mayor's collection. And this is true of a lot of mid 20th century collections, like streets and CPC, City Planning Commission, and other departments like that.
And we were doing that at the same time as we're doing the website also. So we have the photograph collections that are being reunited with the mayor's collections in archive space, but also with the, agency web pages that we were creating, wanted to make sure that those photo collections are there as well. So that's kind of, going back to that whole, we're doing everything all at the same time because we wanted to make sure that everything was mirroring and, you know, everything was kind of building on each other and
Everything talked to each other.
exactly, and everyone was just talking to each other.
So we're going to link out and show. So this is a finding aid for Mayor Moon Landrieu. You can click on his photograph here and it'll take you out to his photo collection. You can explore that. You can see some of the way that things are linked by classification down here. He's got mayors and office of the mayor. So you can, if you were interested in individual mayors or generally the office, you can come here. As you can see, a lot of things were created under the office of the mayor. So we were able to kind of provide a link to those individual finding aids, which in the old website had been linked underneath each other, but not necessarily described in a way that made it clear that they were part of the mayor's office. We can also go to the subjects and go through here and link by geographic location so that we have city council districts. We have this is a specific type of government body that existed for the right bank, which is Algiers, a portion of New Orleans. And so you can look at special collections as well that are part of that area of the city. You can then go to the district and find all the city council people that we have that represented that district. These would be more modern records. And so you can just sort of see over here the subjects that are some of our major subject areas with elected officials, constituent complaints being one of the most popular. So, going back a little bit, while we were making this major push with the website and then with archive space, we were also informed by IT that the server thing dying was real and we needed to anticipate that we would need to upgrade some of our digital storage. So we used, again, this opportunity to sort of assess what we had. Digital preservation had not been an afterthought per se. It had been something that the archivist, previous archivists had been aware of, especially after Hurricane Katrina, but didn't have some of the necessary infrastructure to support that type of digital storage, and not necessarily, it was sort of seen as something that they'd get to later. So we had multiple types of digital storage formats that sort of ran the gamut from floppy disks to weird, your brother owns a company and lobbied the city council to use this to record meetings formats. So we kind of had to do an internal assessment of that. And we saw that digitized records had been done in a pretty good way for content DM, and all that stuff had been stored pretty systemically and easily accessible. City records, we had great intellectual control over. They had been very mindful of creating inventories of what we had. However, the issue with city records is that they were on a variety of hard drives and RAID drives and other types of drives that were getting older and approaching that time of obsolescence where they would start failing. And
A lot of discs too.
a lot of
and
discs.
flash drives that city council members just send over.
We had been we had partnered early on with some other vendors and companies to digitize a lot of arrest records, and so they would do those on optical disc and send them with the label over them, which had made getting that stuff off of those CDs to be somewhat difficult and accessing them to be problematic. And then finally, our internal records again were kind of kept together with good intentions that they did not want to lose them, but that led to a lot of duplication and sort of mismatched things across the different storage mediums. So we went through and we used the NDSA's levels of digital preservation to do a whole assessment of our practices. We now have new processes for storing and backing up digital records that identify a working drive and then back up to DuraCloud, as well as a hard drive that we're still going to use because we've identified a hard drive as a good way to have a digital bug out just in case we need to evacuate in case of a hurricane. And we're standardizing our internal workflows and creating a host of documentation that we're providing to staff members as well as our partners in City Hall, so that when we do transfers of born digital records, they have a better understanding of preferred file formats, how they should be mindful of organizing their material so that we're not just receiving thumb drives with websites and docs dumped on it.
Well, and a little work on their end will keep us from a lot of work, whatever, 10 years from now when the file
Absolutely.
formats that they send us are inaccessible.
So we got DuraCloud, and because of the pressing nature of the dying rubber band server, we initially just backed up everything that we had. That was archive department files, that had been digitized records. I then went through and gathered a bunch of the older like RAID drives and stuff that where I was able to access from our previous archivist that built the old website, and had those backed up as well. So now we're implementing our new guidelines for processing born digital records and storing them in a specific city archives or special collections location, as well as more long-term policy for internal records. And so when we have, when that is being really hammered out, and we're working on that now and moving records into a centralized location, we'll reorganize that digital storage, because DuraCloud uses a sync utility that is best used if it's if you can aim it at a full directory and it can scan the full directory, notice changes and upload changes, so that we can have more of an automated backup process. And then once that's done, that initial backup will be replaced with a full backup that will reduce duplication, file formats that we don't need to keep for a variety of reasons. So we're currently, we've identified a bunch of software, and we've created several strips to go through and create a full inventory of our digital records, both digitized and born digital. Some of our scripts will go through and create an inventory including checksums, file names, file paths, file types. And so we can use MS Access to compare that against itself, so that we can check duplicated files by checksum and by file name. We are again centralizing a lot of those old storage formats into our working drives, so that then we can back them up. We're also going through and scanning them for file types, so that we can make sure that we have file formats that are non-proprietary, and if we do find those that are proprietary, can make good decisions about how to either whether or not we need them, or whether or not we can transform them into something else, convert them into something else, or talk with somebody in city IT about access. All of this new information is being included in a record transfer packet that we hand to city officials and employees, so that they're aware that this is going on. We've reached out to the city IT so that we can talk about how they go about managing a lot of their born digital, complicated applications, and so that we can get some more ideas about how we can go ahead and move forward managing some of our more complicated applications that we'll talk about in a second. And again, the whole digital arrangement is going to better reflect the collection organization, instead of being in multiple places with disparate names for the same type of thing. We're going to reunite them all within a single location, and then back that up to places where we have better control over who can access it.
Okay, so where we are now. This has been a 2 year,
Two
two and a half year
almost 3.
labor of mostly love. But at this point, we are our new website and archive space went live in, oh, I thought it was January. Feels like a long time ago. It went live in March. So yeah, we're fully live. Our DuraCloud and our digital preservation workflows have been implemented, and we're continuing to have conversations about what the future of our digital looks like. We have documented all the things that we've been doing, and we're kind of refining those systems and seeing what works and what doesn't, and sharing it with internal staff so that we're all kind of on the same page. And then as far as our our digital content, we're working with GIS and story maps for digital exhibits. And I did want to just pull that up real quick on our new website just to kind of show that a little bit. So we have, like I said, we're working, or we have one staff member that's mastered GIS and has done all of this, and we're all slowly trying to learn GIS as well. You know, just another new system for us to learn. But so we're showcasing some of our exhibits this way, and we're looking at migrating a lot of our old digital exhibits that were on our old website into something more like story maps. Just as an example, this is about the 1984 World's Fair, and then the 1884 World Industrial Cotton Centennial, the 1884 World's Fair. And she did a comparison of the two different World's Fairs using GIS location, using story maps. So this is the kind of digital content that we are doing on our website right now, and as well as, sorry, as well as our blog. So we're using, as I mentioned earlier, we're using our blog as a tool to record a lot of the information that was on our old website that wasn't necessarily like in the appropriate location, but it was good information that we wanted our patrons to have access to. We named our blog Nutrias in homage to our original website and our furry, horrifying little friends that live in the bayous and the canals around town. So we are utilizing these different subject categories to categorize our blog posts. And we created this category how to, and a lot of the old content that was on our website, we have repurposed into blog posts like this. That has made our genealogy research guide and our property research guide a lot more palatable, I guess, or like a lot less, just a lot less large with a lot less information, but it's good information here. And it's a quick thing that we can share with our patrons. We can email them, you know, we can email them a guide on how to use this new content management system that we initiated, or that we just, you know, started, how to use these Sanborn maps that we have, how to use tax assessment records. So we're using our blog as a way to, you know, make sure that we're not losing that information. But now on our new website, we only have one page that talks about naturalization records rather than 7 pages. But we do have a blog post that kind of brings all of that information into one place so that we can present that. And then, you know, the last thing I'll say about our exhibits, since we are still in a transitional phase from the old website, we have all the information migrated, but some of our, you know, more some of our larger digital exhibits we left up on the server, and these just link out to them. Some of them we have redone. So this is one that I redid in WordPress. That's just a very basic, you know, photo exhibit about the New Orleans Recreation Department, the first 2 years that it was in existence. And then again, some we are creating from scratch, or combining a few to put into like our GIS or story map to present it that way. So yeah, we've got a lot of fun digital stuff here, and a lot of fun digital stuff coming in the future. Do you have anything to add to this part?
I mean, just that a lot of this process has been iterative, and a lot of stops and starts, and saying, okay, so we were doing it like this, and now we've discovered that maybe we should tweak it a little bit and change it so that it can better fit some of these new softwares that we're using. We're continuing to do that now, especially with archive space, and better sort of putting our session records into there, using it to manage collection processing, to track collection processing, as well as some of the location features, which are going to take a little more assessing how we're going to use them, or whether or not we can use them, whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze for that, or if that's going to be something a little further down the line. Again, we're also exploring how to use maybe a remote server to provide access for some of our more digital content that is better served in the aggregate, like city council files, elected official files that may have email or meeting minutes that we can provide access to with zip files. And so we don't have to, have individual links for each individual meeting minute. We're just exploring different ways so that we can do that, because not necessarily with meeting minutes, but with some of the other city council officials or elected official files, we need to have a little bit more control over providing access to that information, especially if we're going to provide quick access and to some of that material, and others that we can't necessarily provide quick access to because it's so large. It might necessarily, it may have PII or other issues embedded in them, so that we need to have a little bit more control over providing access to that information.
Right, so looking ahead, we are, Andrew kind of already talked about the archive space location and processing management. We're refining some of the search tools that we had talked about on the back end. And this is all kind of a, we try something, we see how it works, and then it's a learning process. The digital exhibits in the blog I showed y'all, and then with our new digital workflows and processes, we're trying to eliminate this duplication and consolidate the storage and, figure out, it's a continuous process. And I think all of this has been, especially since everything was done with, our in-house in our department, again, all at the same time, that it was a lot of just, let's try it and see what the problems are, and then address the problems once they pop up.
And Atlas has been very helpful as
Yeah.
far as supporting us with the archive space. And now we're sort of working together as we try to deal with this search. It's not an issue, it's just the way it works, because a lot of the configuration file with archive spaces back end just doesn't have a lot of information there about the steps that it takes to search different fields. And so we've been looking at various GitHubs and message boards to see what other people have done, and played around with it a lot after doing a many long months and year of importing into archive space or building a dummy database to try all this stuff out. So, but kind of messing around with that so that we can get a better hold on search functions. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from patrons in the form of like they are requesting stuff now that they would not have found
Or that we
earlier,
didn't even know we had.
or that we didn't know we had. And there will often, because of the nature of the public library and the type of services that people have been used to, we have gotten some feedback of people that don't find it necessarily intuitive. And so we're going through to make sure that our search return queries reflect maybe what they expect better, versus sort of how archive space will parse them out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's about I think that's about it. If anyone has any questions, oh, I've just done that the whole time. If anyone has any questions, I don't know where how do I find the question thing here?
We don't have any questions in the Q&A yet.
Oh, okay, great.
But we'll give folks just a minute or two in case they want to put their question in the Q&A box, or if they have any, they can put them in the chat as well. Just give a minute or two for that.
Yeah, sure.
While
And
we're
this is our
waiting-
contact information in case you think of a question later, or you want to check out our awesome new website that we're very proud of, which is nolacity.archives.org. You can email us, you can call us, we're always here, and we are happy to talk about all of these processes because we've been doing it for 2.5 years.
Also, if you kindly catch a typo, please let us know.
Okay, we do have one question that came into me directly. It's the person wants to know, how did you advocate for resources and funding?
Well, since we're a department of the public library, we don't have any separate funding. So the library system is funded by a millage that is voted on by the taxpayers. So it was lobbying like within the funding that the library already has. And I mean, honestly, we showed them the website. I mean, Not as simple as that, but
Since there was a new millage that was passed, and you can go back and read about it, but there was some talk with the city council about the budget. And so this new millage was passed, and so there was a lot of push with internally within the department to look for big areas that they can make a push on. They would update Bernie alluded to, they had a new website that they updated maybe 10-15 years ago that they then transitioned to WordPress. So there were other things going on across the library that they were looking to use this new millage to really make a push for.
and there was a digital push for sure.
Big digital push.
And so we kind of slid right in there. But this was also something that the department had been talking about and asking about for years. I mean, we knew that it was a balance between our servers are dying, we're going to lose things, and the presentation of materials is outdated, and it's virtually making it inaccessible to patrons, where we are in the charter of the city. I mean, we are in the code of the city, for us to make the municipal records, accessible to the public. That's part of our mission. So we can't be successful in our mission if we couldn't update these things.
I'll also say that the opportunity presented by the millage to have these big things funded is balanced out on the other end, just because of the way that the library IT works, the way that the city IT and the way that the city approaches technology is very guardedly, I guess. And so the reason we're using scripts instead of certain softwares is getting those softwares approved is not necessarily such a big deal as getting archive space approved. And so it's a little more tedious. Getting them installed on the computer can be difficult, especially when you go over into City Hall and they have their own vagaries about who can get on their computers. It's just easier to have something that is a little more mobile and doesn't necessarily require so many hands to get it installed. So that's kind of one limitation that we do have working within this system, is that it can be a little bit of a leviathan to get smaller things funded and implemented for some of those smaller softwares and things like that. So we do need to be a little more nimble and resourceful in some ways to move as quickly as we have.
But it can be a blessing, because it gave us, because we were doing everything ourselves, because we were like, okay, well, we have to use WordPress because the library has WordPress. We have to use this because that's what the city has a contract with. We had control over all of our data, which was great. We got to make the decisions instead of, we don't have a budget to outsource someone, a company to build us a website. We have to do it ourselves. Great, we can make it look exactly how we want, within our within our talents.
It was a big learning curve, a lot of skills gained,
But
sanity lost at times, but yeah.
Okay, well, we have 2 more questions.
Oh, great.
The first one is, how do you balance the user friendliness of a new platform between different patron needs?
So we did a big launch of our new website. We had a welcome to our new website blog post that had a long kind of introduction written by the director of the archives about it. That's kind of what we're using those how-to blog posts about as well. One about how to search our new website, how to search archive space. Is this thing that you're used to seeing, where does it live now? But we were also really mindful of that when we were creating the new website, and that all the pathways are the same. So if you would go to the homepage and you would see a whole list, and you would click on genealogy guide, and then within that, all of the different subcategories, it's all the same pathway basically, but it just is in a box instead of on a list, and it's in this color, and it's the information is trimmed down. Mostly we've had positive feedback. Sometimes we haven't had positive feedback, but that's just the nature of it, and it's the nature of working with the public. And I think that over time, people will see that this is better, more efficient, and get used to. I mean, it's always going to take time for people to get used to change, but we had that in the back of our minds too, about appealing to members of the public that don't do research, that just want to come find their grandma's obituary, you know, so they can easily get to the obituary index within 3 clicks, but also appeal to, you know, our professional researchers that come from France to look at court records and, you know, write books about them. So
So,
it's definitely a balance.
yeah, it was talked about the entire time throughout the meetings, and I think the structure of the way that when Brittany referred to how the website filters into archive space, we tried to anticipate that the different patron needs can follow that path to archive space, so that if someone's looking for more general information about the way New Orleans government was after the Civil War, they can find that. But if they want to find records about that, then they can get to those records more easily, which is, I think, before somebody would maybe feel that they were coming in to find information on a certain subject and then send us a list of resources that, you know, may not have anything to do with that subject, or may have some sort of tenuous connection, but they don't necessarily have the information they need to access what they do within those sort of records, like ledgers or coroner's record books or something like that. So in building the website to sort of filter into archive space, we've tried to sort of anticipate that. And then when they get into archive space, with the search function isn't quite up to where we would like it to be, but with the subjects and the classifications, we're hoping, and we've seen so far, that people are able to navigate it based more on sort of their research needs as they see them, more subject based, than rather like, this is the government of New Orleans and I'm looking for environmental stuff from Dutch Maury House collection, which you had the danger of getting really lost in the old website. It was a weird haunted mansion of liminal web space. And it was hard to kind of find your way out. Whereas here, there's a clear path in, clear path out. You can orient yourself. At least that's the intention. We have gotten some feedback that that is the case. We've gotten some feedback from folks whose bookmarks to the old website don't work anymore, and they're upset about it.
And, you know, we say thank you for your feedback,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yep.
there's always the way back machine if they really hate our new website.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then last question so far. In a hypothetical situation where you were a sole archivist or a smaller team with the exact same starting point, what parts of your revamp would you have prioritized or targeted?
I know my answer. About you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, you answer first and I'll think about it.
I think specifically, okay, so first I would have gone with the research guides and maybe sort of shape those up to be more user friendly, because this is a large section of our patron base that aren't professional researchers. They're genealogists or they're property researchers just trying to figure out information about their house. Shored that up to make that more user accessible, and then I would have started with the finding aids with the big collections like mayor and city council.
So would you do the, like, I guess, I think that, are they asking the website, archive space,
which
or
one?
EuroCloud? Which one of those three you would do first?
Website, then probably
I would do the website
yeah.
because I think that that would be the like the low hanging fruit, you know, and that is also the like entry point to your collections. And you know, coming from, because like working with the public so much, I've seen so many people look at our website and just kind of have this like, you know, just look of horror go over their face because they're like, oh, this isn't for me.
We're just
Or
stuck.
this is too much, or like this goes too deep, this isn't for me. And so, you know, as a public institution, and you know, I'm telling people, I'm like, these are your records, these records belong to you. And if the first thing that you see is our website that doesn't feel welcoming to you, then they're not gonna dive into any of our collections. So yeah, I would start with the website. And then I mean, and I think it also depends on your collection. If you have a lot of digital materials that you need to explore long-term digital preservation, I mean, you can do something as easy as just,
Yeah.
you know, just getting Amazon cloud storage as a long temporary solution while you work on something else. So I think it is very specific to your institution, but yeah, I would do the website because I think that that's your face
You can still have the fun. I mean,
to
if you're
the public.
yeah, if you're a lone arranger, you're still you can still kind of get everything on the website. You don't have to, because I think if you went with archive space first, it would create a whole lot of other problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mean, even having finding aids that are, I mean, I guess it's not ideal just having PDFs of finding aids that are OCR that you can search, but I mean, it works, you know, and at the end of the day, we want to get patrons the information and we want them to be able to find it. And, you know, of course, I think a content management system is preferable, but you know, you got to work within the means and you got to work with what you got. And if you're a, you know, one person show, it's getting the information and materials out to the public as quickly or easily as possible, I guess.
I think the website, because you can do you can do more with it than you can with archive space, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is all the questions that we have. Thank you so much for your presentation. We
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
appreciate you guys. Just before we close it out, any final thoughts that you want to give to the folks out in the ether?
Thank you very much for joining and listening.
Thanks so much. Y'all have a nice day.
Awesome. Okay, well, just reminding everyone, Snappy Hour is tonight at 6:15. Come through for Snappy Hour. We definitely want to see you guys there. And if not, we'll see everyone tomorrow, 9 a.m. for the first session. Thanks, everyone.
Great.